Hey everybody, it's on my mic, secret sauce. Sorry about that. I was trying to move some cables out of my face. It's Friday. My name is still Kevin Merkel. I'm still CEO of CoinMetro. That's what it says right down here. And this is an AMA. You're going to ask, and I'm going to answer. Hopefully, we'll see how well I do. Every once in a while, there's some questions that I can't answer. Normally about tokens that I've never heard of. But let's see how this week goes. I see we already got some questions rolling in, so I'm just going to jump right into it. By the way, everybody, Happy New Year. I'm sure we're going to mention that more than once on the show today. So not a question from Deep Philippe, but definitely first in the chat. Thank you, Deep Philippe, for all you do. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your help. And hope soon, in just a few days, big welcome to the team, man. Be great to work together. All right, nobody in particular. Do SD's new regulations regarding DeFi have any relevance to CM's operations? For example, not being allowed to accept deposits of funds that went through unregulated DEXs. Well, I would say that this they aren't new regulations yet. I believe they're currently sitting in Parliament. I've seen a lot of descriptions of this not yet translated into English officially potential legislation. And I believe, like with most legislations, people are interpreting in their own way, and they are cutting out a lot of the gray area that exists in almost every law ever written in the books. Laws normally are gray for a reason, and that's so that when a law is perceived or to be broken, the state has the ability to fight around all corners. So, laws are never black and white. I don't think this is going to stop regulated exchanges from accepting money that may have passed through a DEX. Reason being is that the regulated exchange, while they may not be able to apply the travel rule 100% through direct connection to a DEX, they also cannot place the travel rule exactly through anything sent through something like MetaMask or a private wallet. I do not think that's going to stop or make the government start going after transactions that go through private wallets. Reason being is that you have a lot of information that exists inside of any blockchain. It's not that a transaction simply starts from MetaMask. It has to start somewhere. Someone brings in fiat at some point into the market or is paid in crypto. And then that crypto has a journey, goes through a life. It goes through many different touch points. And there's enough data, for the most part, to be able to link crypto back to specific individuals, especially when that individual has now KYC'd on a regulated exchange. So I think people are misinterpreting or interpreting, but creating a very dry version of what is potential gray area around some of these proposed laws. Again, I don't think all these laws are going to make it into the final regulation. Having said their final laws, I should say, it's not regulation. The regulator has to regulate or actually make sure those laws are adhered to by the industry. What I will say is that I've said for a long time that DEXs are going to have problems in the future, and that eventually there's going to be issues with centralized exchanges or gatekeepers of this new economy accepting funds. Now, this is what we're seeing now is the initial steps of that. I don't think that's going to happen this time around, but we are going to get to a point where DEXs are going to have a problem. They're going to have a problem because they're not going to be able, their clients are not going to be able to transact easily, at least, with other gatekeepers or with gatekeepers, meaning exchanges and KYC wallets, etc. So I think Estonia is probably, again, at the forefront in many ways of where most regulators are headed. But I don't think they're going to make the drastic change that requires now centralized exchanges under their purview and their own regulator having to go through and sift through all this information to try and figure out when the end gatekeeper, which is the regulated exchange, the centralized exchange, is already regulated and taking in documentation. There is something to be said for when you're trying to catch criminals, you obviously want to see their documents, right? So if you believe there's criminal activity, money laundering happening on a DEX, and that criminal wants to onboard and give their documentation to a centralized exchange, which then the regulator can request, why would they stop them from doing that? That's a question you should have in your minds. Okay, moving on to the next question. Hey, Harold, how are you? Are you aware of the SEC case about LBC, the library content platform's utility token? Could the outcome have consequences for other utility tokens like XCM? I am aware of it. I think I read an article earlier this year, February, March, April, something like that. Could have even been into the summer. I don't remember. But yes, I am aware. I think the case for the SEC here is pretty specific. I think it has to do probably with more along the lines of of how the utility token pays out rewards, the mining aspect of this token, in that they believe that that falls into the realm of security. I'm not going to say whether I think they're right or wrong. They believe, I think it's a CIS, a collective investment scheme, where basically you profit off of the work of others. That's where their case, I think, hinders. I don't think this has any effect on XCM or other utility tokens that do carry utility on a single specific operational platform. Hey, Kev, what has been your personal highlights CoinMetro-wise this year, and how did the decision to move to Estonia come about? Small country, after all. Happy New Year. So we actually didn't move to Estonia. We kind of started in Estonia. So I'll take the last part of that question first. I originally was thinking about establishing CoinMetro in Georgia, not the state, if you're from the US, but the country. Why? I mean, that's probably a good question. Hold on, just grabbing some water. Reason I thought about establishing in Georgia was that at the time with my FX business, we were looking for a new place to acquire a license. And obviously we went to, we looked at Cyprus, we looked at Malta, we looked at other European jurisdictions as well. Cyprus being probably the #1 FX licensed jurisdiction, probably still in the world. But we wanted to try and not just be centered on Europe. And so the idea, Georgia's kind of Eurasian, so it sits between Europe and Asia, sorry. And we had some information that the FX license that exists in Georgia, which historically had only been available to banks, was going to open up to a wider section of companies, so that any fintech could apply for it. And so we went to Georgia. However, experience in Georgia, people not showing up to interviews, the general lack of just, the general lack of people not showing up to interviews was probably one of the reasons, to be honest. I remember a guy showing up on the 5th day, just rocked up, sat down in the chair, started talking. And I'm listening to what he's saying. I'm asking questions. I'm looking at the CV, who this is supposed to be. Let's call him Bob. I'm like, okay, so I see on your CV tends to be a bit different than what you're telling me here. What was your last job? And I'm like, this isn't matching, Bob. And he's like, oh, my name's not Bob. It's like, what's your name? Well, my name's Fred. So I look back through my list. Maybe Fred's the next guy. Maybe he came in early. An amazing Fred. Absolutely, maybe communication skills could be a bit better, but amazing Fred. And I look, no, Fred was supposed to be there 3 days ago. Never called, never emailed, nothing. Just showed up 3 days late, sat down for an interview. Anyway, so decided that Georgia wasn't the place. This was in January of 2018, early January or mid-January. And I had seen or read about the Estonia's adaptation of the yet-to-be fully redacted MLD5, the AMLD5, Anti-Money Laundering Directive 5, which meant, pretty progressive, right? They had licenses, and they were the only country in the EU with a license, not an exemption, not like, do what you want, we'll figure this shit out later, but an actual license. So I got on a plane, flew to Estonia. I think within a day or two, I started having interviews. Within 3 or 4 days, hired their first employee. And that was it. Look for office space. And that's why Estonia. So highlights for this year. Well, while we still get, some slack for not being in the billions yet in terms of volumes, I think our growth in general is something that we can be happy about. If we do that same growth, next year, we are going to be one step closer to kind of hanging out with the big boys. We saw pretty massive growth across all numbers with basically organic growth. So we weren't spending a ton of money on advertising, as when marketing, and And we still saw what I think is great growth. We saw growth across all metrics, across our teams. We saw growth in volumes. We saw growth in numbers of clients. And, we also saw growth in things we don't necessarily want to see growth in, like fraud. But what it means is that we're starting to be noticed, and being noticed is kind of the first step into making sure your business gets on the right track and moves. Sometimes those bad things can actually be, those red flags can actually be a good thing in some way, shape, or form, at least in hindsight, not while you're going through it. So I think growth overall is probably something that I would look back fondly on in 2021. I also think, we had a lot, 2018 and 19, even into 2020, we struggled a lot to make sure that we kept the doors open. And we did. We did do it. And I think everybody that's been here through that can definitely pat themselves on the back and say, job well done. And 2021 was kind of the first year where we really started to see our strategies paying off. This whole listing gem strategies, you remember the two circles, sweet spot being companies that were small market caps, great teams, doing great things, same ethos as us, no fiat on and off ramps, and willing to build product with us. And we were doing that for 2 years, almost 3 years, without really seeing anything from our efforts. And we started to see a lot of potential from those efforts this year. And I think that was amazing. Hey, MVB, nice to see you. XCM made some nice highs recently. But it did not get to your €1, €1 end of year expectation. We still have some hours though. What do you think are the reasons? Did your expectations change? Well, I want to clarify this, Harold, because I never said that I expected it to happen. I said it's still possible. It's always possible that we can hit €1. In fact, because of our growth, it was definitely within the realm of possibilities. And yep, we didn't make it, and we probably won't make it in a few hours either. But I think 2022, we will surpass that €1. And why do I think that? And why do I think we didn't make it? Well, you saw definitely swings in the market on a whole, right? So we saw maybe 3-4 months ago, or actually back in March or April, we saw highs. Was it March? I think it was March. It was March. Actually, March 15th, I think, was when we came off highs, if I remember correctly. And just now in December, we've seen swings, right? Where we gained back market wide a good 20-25% of the on paper losses that people have seen. But now we're swinging back towards, somewhere near that low. Some assets, obviously, there's always outliers that do better than the rest of the market. But the market as a whole has been quite volatile. And, we tend to follow the market in some sense. Doesn't mean we always follow the market, but XCM does seem to follow the market in some sense. Why? Well, we are an exchange token. So when people see, they're sitting on the exchange and they see fluctuations and they're trying to make money off those fluctuations, they may be buying in and out of XCM, one, to create a market, but also to be able to move funds into other assets, et cetera. So, yep, we didn't hit the €1 USD yet, but we will. I'm pretty confident that we're going to see it, I would say, in the early half of 2021 or 22. Depends on what the market does on a whole as well. But also I know that there is, lots of fresh money sitting, both coming into XCM, as well as XCM moving around in our own ecosystem. That new staking program that we're talking about, the new program, but the, what I should call it, the new features or new tokenomics, we wanted to release those before the end of the year. Unfortunately, lots of stuff happens in a business, and sometimes you can't foretell what's going to happen. Well, you can almost never foretell what's going to happen. You might be right twice, like a broken clock, but you'll never be right every time. So, lots of things happened. We had to divert attention to other things. But I do believe that's going to cause our staking program to expand, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50, 60% more staked, which will leave very, very little on that sell side. As you've probably realized, when staking was announced, we saw a massive reduction in the sell side book. I think we're going to see an even larger reduction to that sell side book once the new tokenomics are announced. And that didn't happen before the end of the year. I think that would have been a catalyst to potentially get us to the €1 USD. Didn't happen, but it will happen early next year. And I believe that's going to be a catalyst to get us there, like I said, early in the early half of 2022. Any thoughts on VeChain? Nope, not really. The only thing I ever read on VeChain, and people have mentioned a few times, was when I think they started working with logistics with Walmart. And that was back in 17, 18, something like that. Haven't really paid attention to VET, so I can't really give you too much of a comment about it, but people have been asking about it, so maybe it'll end up on a short list at some point. Why can't you tell the details of the new XCM tokenomics? It's not set in stone, or is it due to marketing reasons? Well, I guess it's kind of both. The idea is set in stone. How we apply that idea specifically is not. What we've noticed is that, I like to be very open and transparent with you guys. I might not share 100% because I might not remember 100% when I sit down in this or any other chair on a Friday. But I tend to be very open. And sometimes I share too much. And then that information is used by our competitors or simply taken by people who want to do us harm. And, that doesn't necessarily help us achieve our goals. So with this, I don't believe anybody could take this information and cause us harm, but they definitely could take that information, some of our competitors, and attempt to apply it to their own tokenomics before we do, and thus kind of making it seem like we were second and not first. So, we just want to keep it under wraps. We might have to start doing that with other types of information. I've given out information here on this show that we can clearly see has aided in some of the fraud spikes that we've seen. So some information I've given have given fraudsters a bit too much vision into how we operate here at CoinMetro, which is a shame because I like to be transparent and I love to share absolutely everything. But we do need to keep some things under wraps to make sure that our systems and everything run as they should and we don't run into issues. Hey, Harold, Happy New Year to you as well and everybody else watching. Well, it's not. Well, for some people, it may. Is it New Year for anybody yet? Maybe New Zealand? I forget what the time difference is for New Zealand. Happy New Year to you and your family. Keep up. Thank you very much, Philip. I very much appreciate that. Happy New Year to you and yours as well. Why was your brother asking on YouTube? Why was your brother asking on YouTube the last CMAMA? Do you guys don't have any other methods of communication? No, I think he was on his way here actually to come. He's actually, I don't know, 30 meters away from me right now. But he was actually flying here, and I think he was just sitting in the airport, happened to be watching the AMA. We absolutely, we chat on WhatsApp. We obviously talk to each other on the phone as well, and he's literally personally here, been here for the past couple of days. So yesterday's AMA with THT, you mentioned you were mining Bitcoin since 2009. Holy moly. Could you elaborate on this? Well, I think Bitcoin white paper came out in 2008, roughly 3, 4, 5 months after that. Someone sent me an SMS. A friend of mine said, you should check this out. It's probably right up your alley. And I did. So I downloaded at the time, to be honest, like most people, I think that read it, I thought, what? But then when I really started digging, I downloaded the miner almost immediately. The original miner, the little software that you downloaded, you could download on a computer. I put it on an iMac in my office and I just let it run. Then I started to kind of dig in a bit. And the first thing I thought about when I really started to understand what Bitcoin was, or at least what it was trying to be, was the stock market, was equities around the world. Because it's just if you've ever tried to buy equities in other countries or tried to get involved in an IPO or, whatever, it's not easy, man. If you ever tried to run an IPO, also not easy. And the first thing I thought was, wow, this system could absolutely revolutionize the core of our financial markets around the world. Didn't really think about payments or buying fucking a Starbucks or no shit like that. Didn't think about any of the, definitely didn't think about non-fungibles or whatever. Of course, it has nothing to do with Bitcoin. But what I thought was the revolution that it would cause inside of regulated financial markets. Payments, I mean, you can disrupt payments, but payments aren't all that bad now, comparatively speaking, where they were, 30 years ago. So for me, that definitely didn't trigger anything in my mind. But regulated markets are horrendous. They're antiquated. They suck. They're very difficult to deal with. It's very hard to move or buy assets into other countries. It's very hard to move assets on occasion. Sometimes you end up with like 12 intermediaries, and just to be able to sell that asset afterwards takes forever. And it causes. There's actually massive amounts of money and time that are lost to the current financial ecosystem. So yeah, that's my Bitcoin mining story. The recent influx of new users turned out to be scammers. Can you give some numbers on the percentage of legitimate users? Yeah, roughly half were legitimate users. So we did have an influx of new users. That's for sure. I would say probably at this point, I don't know the exact number because I haven't checked since yesterday, but I would say it's somewhere between 6,000 to 10,000 legitimate and 6,000 to 10,000 non-legitimate. But yeah, we definitely did have an influx. The influx wasn't as big in terms of legitimacy as the entire influx, but it was at least half in terms of legitimate users. What can you expect in Q1? Development has felt slow lately. Have the new devs become acquainted with the operations yet? Can we expect development to pick up? You absolutely can expect development to pick up. And yes, they are. I think they finally will be tasked with, they've been tasked with mainly infrastructure, kind of behind the scenes jobs up to this point, things that can be siloed and they can work on. And if something were to break, wouldn't affect the rest of the infrastructure. Now, I think in Q1 next year, still next year, at least where I'm sitting, they will be tasked with a larger project that they can actually work on by themselves. Development, I don't think, has been slow at all. It's just that there are things that need to be done for further visual development to be seen, right? So you kind of go through these cycles. I know there's a development methodology called waterfall, and this isn't waterfall, but just to give you an analogy, you have this slow, let's call it a river. You have a river, you have a slow development that's behind the scenes. That starts to pick up as you build in the infrastructure that's going to be required to basically finish what you're trying to build. And then all of a sudden, there's this waterfall effect where people start to see all these things on the front end and go, wow, this is amazing. But there's so much work that has to happen before that. So you kind of go into cycles. You have these cycles where there's waterfalls, where you're starting to see lots of small things come to fruition. You think, wow, these guys are knocking things out every day. And then you go back to a little bit of river, then rapids, then waterfall all over again. That's essentially what our development cycles have looked like over the past year. There was a long, probably a 6-month waterfall that we saw, where we saw a lot of things come into play. And now we're a little bit at the river, but I think Q1, you're going to see more waterfall, more rapid, at least front end development that you can see. Binance and France seem to become good friends in the future. Do you think they will finally make it? What are your thoughts on it? Yeah, I read about this as well. There's a reason why they went to France. There's no one with a crypto license in France. And they do have legislation in place, but no one goes there. So I think they thought they could be, they're only one in the room, so at least they'll be heard. They're big. They can provide a lot of tax back to the country, which I'm sure France or any country would want to listen to them at least. The thing is that you can't erase the past. And with their current CEO in his position, he can't erase the past. He has to respond to why, if he knew what was happening in Binance, why he didn't act differently. And that's a question that's almost impossible for him to answer, because no matter what answer he gives, it's the wrong one. We didn't have enough resources, which, I guess was true for the first 2 months of Binance, maybe. We didn't know. Well, you clearly knew, because now you're going after regulation. You clearly, and if you didn't know, you should have known. And why didn't you hire someone who knew? Why did you think you should take on this burden? You designed some tech once. Why did you think you were the guy to take on this burden? How does that show good leadership? There's going to be a series of questions. I don't think the main Binance will end up in France. They may end up with a Binance France that they will try to passport around the EU. That's possible, just like they did in the US. The question is will if that were to happen, how long until the operations of Binance France come to be seen as the overall operations of Binance located nowhere? And that will lead to additional questions, additional problems, fines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't really see this happening. I could be wrong. If it does happen, I would expect a subsidiary, and more, obviously not with CZ in charge, and not, Binance moving to France. Any news on IBANs and debit cards? The news I have is Q2 is when we plan to launch our digital fiat brand, which will be issuing those IBANs and debit cards. So probably we'll see IBANs first, debit cards shortly thereafter. But we're talking about Q2, simply because we have a lot of things that we need to accomplish with CoinMetro in Q1, and we need to lay the groundwork, some of that behind the scenes work, to make sure that we can support all this in Q2. I've seen some things brewing with you and Babana NFT project built on Cadena. They are forking Marmalade for their marketplace. Could we eventually see Babana marketplace integrated with CM? Yep, just really initial talks. I actually plan to have a much more extensive chat with Babana at some point, probably next week. So I don't have much information to share with you right now. I just think, look, I like Kadena. I like working with Kadena. I want to support them in any way I can. If we can support projects that work on Kadena to help support Kadena, in general, then I'm all for it. That doesn't mean we'll support every single one. Maybe we end up not doing anything with Babana. I don't know at this point, but I'm interested to find out how we could potentially work together. And that's definitely one potential avenue we may explore. How is marketing coming along? How big is the current marketing team? Current marketing team is 4 individuals. Then we have a growth team, which currently has 1 individual, but they work very closely together, marketing and growth. We're still hiring. We have, I think, content, product marketing, data analysts for growth, and a media buyer. I think are the next things you're going to see on what we're looking for on CoinMetro webpage, and at Workable, etc. So that's our next recruiting avenue that we're going to take in terms of marketing and growth. Marketing is coming along nicely. We're working with external media buyers right now, setting up ads, getting platforms ready, getting accounts ready, getting those blue badges like you saw on our Twitter account, getting those across different platforms. Q1, we will start. We were going to start in December with that. I mentioned that $80,000 euro ad spend. That's going to happen in January. We did spend a little bit on tests in December, but we came too close to the holidays and we decided to hold back until January. So second, third week of January, that money will be spent and off we go. What company would CM be interested in buying if you had the money? Well, considering that we're not looking at acquisitions right now, I don't really look around, to be honest, to see what company I would like to purchase. I do think, just off the top of my head, companies that could augment our copy trading system, maybe something like, what are they, Stacked or 3 Commas, would potentially be interesting. If I look at other things where I would like to expand, our Invest platform is something that I would like to expand. So potentially companies that could help us expand on that business. That could be something like Republic, for example. I'm not saying Republic specifically, but it could be something like Republic. Potentially wallet service as well would be something that would be interesting to us, and not just, maybe something like Credo would be super interesting. I think if we had the money to buy them out. Probably wouldn't sell to us though. I think they see a very vivid future, just like I do for them. But some type of wallet service, maybe even a layer 2 solution, something like that, to augment what we already have, would also bring down our own internal costs and allow us to monetize our own platforms even better than we currently do. And potentially on the just awareness marketing side, maybe some type of decentralized social media platform, something like that, so that we control some of that narrative. Powers in the narrative. Can we expect a large number of new users in 2022? CM is currently the gem exchange, yeah, but it needs a large amount of tokens to attract normies. I don't think that's true. I don't think you need a large amount of tokens. I think a large amount of tokens actually, while the reason it works, I'll tell you why it works and why it doesn't work. At least this again. This is going to be opinion, but based on some type of data, at least data that we've seen on our own exchange, and also just general perception, I think, from retail clients, having been one and having known a lot of them. Normies in the crypto industry get married to an asset, maybe 2 assets. They might, maybe they have an affair with one asset, but they're generally married to one. Maybe they have an affair with a few. There's probably a few Mormon newbies, normies, Mormon normies. That sounds like a sitcom that I wouldn't watch. Mormon normies that may have 7 or 8 wives that they're married to in terms of tokens or coins, but there's usually a very small amount, right? And so obviously when that token gets listed somewhere, they ape into whatever exchange listed it, right? I mean, that's how this works. So having lots of tokens brings you lots of communities. But when you list the same tokens that everyone else lists, you lose pieces of those communities. And you don't become synonymous, in the most part, with those assets. Somebody asks, where's this asset listed? Like, here's a list. There's no real connection between the asset and the exchange. Much different from traditional, right? If you say, where's Apple? Is, oh, NASDAQ. I trade on the NASDAQ because that's where all the tech companies are. I trade on whatever. Doesn't happen in crypto. But we're trying to create something very similar. So we might not have all the normies who are married to all these different tokens, but we find specific assets that we feel are going to do well, and we embed ourselves into their community. And we become kind of like, oh, CoinMetro is great. They service our community. And then their clients come to us and experience CoinMetro for themselves and say, yeah, you know what? CoinMetro is really cool to work with. Their support is amazing. I like their platforms. Their pricing is good. They do AMAs, whatever the reason is, they also become enamored with us and become advocates for us. So that doesn't mean that we won't be listing more assets. We still want to have this gem side of the business. We obviously will list more assets over time, for sure. So we will have maybe 100, 200 assets, and 30 of those we will consider kind of to be, the gems. Whereas the rest are just because, they showed volume or our clients asked because they wanted to trade them. Remember, though, that CoinMetro's focus, look, we are a crypto exchange at the core, but as you can, well, and maybe you can't see, but as I can see, we don't make our revenue from people trading in and out of assets. We make most of our revenue from providing great service and providing different ways for them to utilize those assets, whether that be staking, whether that be copy trading, whether that be margin. Now, margin does mean trading, but people will buy Bitcoin or Ethereum to use as collateral to buy other things, even just to continue to trade Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I think there's something to be said for listing everything under the sun, but I don't think that's a solution for us. I think the solution for us is, yes, listing more assets, but also still focusing on this gem strategy. I don't think you need to list everything under the sun to attract normies. I think you need to be careful on what normies you attract. I don't want the Dogecoin normies, for example. They don't understand this market. They don't understand what they're doing. They have no inclination of how to pick an asset. They just go by what Twitter says. And that's not the type of client we want to service. They cost more money to service because they come for more inquiries into support. They tend to be erratic in their behavior. They tend to lose money. When they lose money, they want to blame somebody. They may blame us. So now we get our Trustpilot rating down. Now we get people on Reddit saying that they lost money with us, but not really. They just lost money. So it is a delicate balance. And I think up to this point, we've proven that the side we've chosen, even though it took some time to come to fruition, works. I've been purchasing Vesper since it launched on the exchange, but the price continues to fall. Other than buying more, what can I do to get Vesper to work for me? Staking on CM soon. Well, you can, not yet on CM, but that is something that we want to be doing in Q1, is looking at Vesper staking. Basically, you can go to Vesper now and get connected to one of their pools and start earning additional Vesper tokens. So you can do that now through Vesper. We hope to be able to do that in Q1 at CoinMetro. We also hope to take some of that technology, some of that, basically creating creating liquidity pools, and applying that to other assets. So not only Vesper. And one just note of advice. Now, I'll start by saying I don't own a Vesper yet. I may become an owner at some point. I'm not yet. But this goes for any asset. If you made a decision to buy an asset, if you made a decision to go in, you should have done some research and figured out that you like this company and like what they were doing. You should never expect for any asset, whether that be a stock or otherwise or a crypto, to go up all the time or go up immediately after you buy it. That's usually not how the market works. In fact, that's almost never how the market works. So you need to expect the volatility. If you're buying back in, that's already smart. You're dollar cost averaging. You're getting your total buy to a lower price, which is great, which means when the price does increase, you'll be back to profitability much quicker than you would have if you just sat in your initial purchase. But just make sure you have your limits. Don't keep buying just for the sake of buying. Understand what your limit is into that specific asset. Stick to it. Find whether you're looking at technicals or just fundamentals, find a point where you believe that at some point you are not willing to take any additional on-paper losses and stick to it. You're not going to win on every bet you take. You may have a massive win on Vesper. You may not. You may buy another token that's a massive win. You may have a loss, but make sure that you stick to your guns. If your maximum loss threshold is 30%, start getting rid of tokens at a 30% loss. Yep, it's a loss. Great. People like to say, well, it's not a loss till you take it. That's not That is a bit of bad advice for someone who's new to a market. Why? Because if it goes to zero, you could have got out with just a 30% loss. And if you believe, if in your heart 30% hurts, don't let it go to 40 or 50. You can always buy back in, right? Anyway, so that's just a little piece of advice, just in general. Luna had a partnership with Cadena since November 2020. Did you try to work with Luna when they were still small, or do you feel you missed it? We did reach out to Luna. We talked to Luna when they were smaller. It's just that, yeah, they were moving in one direction pretty fast. And, we didn't have the resources really to provide them with anything they couldn't acquire elsewhere. So we're not going to be able to work with everyone we want to work with. That doesn't mean we won't work with Luna in the future. We are going to be releasing, native Luna. And I think at that point, we may be able to help them with some bridges or custody, etc., just like we are with Cadena. Good morning, Kevin. Hey, Nick. Good morning. CoinMetro is the best exchange in crypto, and your AMA sessions have made me a better investor. Can you explain why when Bitcoin tanks, the entire market dumps in a similar manner? Sure. Good question, Nick, especially for new people coming in and watching the show. By the way, Happy New Year. So simple explanation, which is quite complex under the hood. Think of a Ferrari motor in a Fiat. I don't know if you could even do that. I'm not a mechanic. But yeah, anyway, point being is that retail, meaning normal people who trade, don't understand how market mechanics work. So they work on fear and greed. Pretty much that's it. All emotion. Hype brings greed. And when, prices fall, when there's capitulation, when tops are in, comes fear. And so working on emotional trading, they see one asset, Bitcoin, falling. They start to see things on Twitter. They start to see things even in mainstream media. Bitcoin completely crashes overnight, down 22%. Market cap already under, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And they go, oh, man, what am I going to do? The X amount of money I just put into, Shibu Inu or whatever is probably going to fall. Maybe I should sell some. So you have a herd of people running into the market to sell their asset, believing that there's some correlation. Not because there is, not because there should be. Theoretically, there really shouldn't be at all. But they believe there is. Why? Well, to them, it's a cryptocurrency, and they bought a cryptocurrency. Kind of like if you bought into like a spider ETF, you bought into an ETF, or you bought a stock. Let's say you bought some newbie investor buys a pharmaceutical stock. And Pfizer falls. They're going to go, oh, man, pharmaceuticals are going to get wrecked, and they may sell. But here, they don't understand that. First of all, I would say there's no cryptocurrencies, but that's a whole other argument. I think they're crypto assets in general. But they see one crypto fall, and since they're in a crypto, they assume, well, people are going to sell it. It's going to fall too. Let me get out now. And so many people do that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It falls. And since most retail get enamored with technicals because they feel that somehow, shape, or form lines on a chart actually dictate where a market goes, which they don't, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy as well. They put a line on their chart that in hindsight worked, and they assume it's going to work in foresight in the future. And so many people are looking at that same line, whether that be a Fibonacci level, whether that be just a line on a chart that, from candle tops, whether that be a moving average, whatever the case may be. By the way, moving averages move with the price average. So they will always almost touch price when there's any significant, move in price because it's an average. Anyway, point being is that they follow each other and they follow the same basic teachings, and thus it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's not because of any real underlying market mechanics. It's because of who trades in this market. The less retail trading you get, the less you're going to see that correlation. Do you expect a larger amount of tram traders moving in with the event and new tram platform? I do. Plus, we'll start to market it to managers as well as investors, and I think that's going to make a big difference. Absolutely. At Harry. Oh, yeah, there you go. That was an answer to somebody else's question, which I think I already answered. Thanks for that. Any large partnerships in the works? General BizDev news. Well, BizDev kind of slows down at the end of the year, to be honest. I mean, you saw we had an AMA yesterday with THD. I think there's going to be a bit of BizDev in the future with THD. We had the AMA with Vesper in the recent past. There's probably going to be a bit of biz dev with them. I do believe we're going to start to see some biz dev with at least one other platform that we've been talking with. We haven't listed them yet, so I'll keep mum's the word on that one. But there'll be additional biz dev with Cadena for sure. So more things coming with Cadena. So now that we have several great partners we're working with, a lot of biz dev is going to come internally between those relationships we already have, because we have working relationships. They know how we work, we know how they work, and we can work very well together. But there will be some additional biz dev news Q1 for sure. And we hopefully will have a biz dev team, or at least one person in that team, and then a growing team also in Q1. Can you explain why it's per design that sometimes limit orders, example, a buy at 3.8 changes in the book with extra decimals? It has often been reported, but doesn't seem to be taken serious. Let's see. Per design, okay? That sometimes limit orders, changes in the book with extra decimals. Yep, this is actually one, I actually can't answer this one, but it probably has something to do with the matching engine looking to match or fill gaps in the order book. Now, having said that, limit orders, well, actually, let me rephrase this. This is a good question, actually. It got me kind of stumped. I had to read it a couple times. So when you place a limit order, you're asking for that price or better. In this example, you have a buy at 3.8, which changes to a better price, 3.7965. Why is that? There's probably a gap in the order book and a pending order that just came in, whether that be another limit order or whether that be a market order, or it's simply trying to fill a gap in the book and giving you a better price because, well, limit orders are supposed to be filled at your price or better. If it's giving you a worse price, that is definitely an issue and we should look into it. So let me know if it's actually giving you a worse price. If it's a better price, I don't know if that's necessarily by design, because I would say from a high level, it is let's call it a bug, but it's a bug that's basically looking at your order, finding a gap in the book and placing it at a better price, which is essentially what a limit order does in execution anyway. Hey, Kevin, any news on the Flux CoinMetro bonus? Well, our engineers are back by the 10th. So as we have said before, I think somewhere around the 15th, we're going to see those paid. They came in right before the holidays. That was the problem. Any chance of making CoinMetro available to people who live in New York? Well, that requires a BIT license. BIT license is probably one of the most complicated licenses to receive in finance. And I'm talking about any type of financial license. It takes a lot of time, a lot of money. It's about a $2 to $3 million effort to get a BIT license in New York. We will have one at one day in the future, for sure. There's no immediate plans. I think that's probably more 2023 into 2024, to be honest. Any news regarding UAE, Dubai? No, I have been invited to a couple more conferences. I probably will be in the UAE either in January or February, at least in February for the conference, and potentially in January before that to have some talks. So I will have some news early next year, but no news as of yet. There are some tweets regarding Estonia banning non-custodial wallets. What does that mean for CoinMetro and withdrawals and future compliance? I already answered this one right at the beginning of the show. It's not a law yet. It is a proposal. It's sitting in Parliament. I do expect this to change before it becomes law. It doesn't mean anything for CoinMetro yet. I believe you have to understand that. Well, so do legislators need to understand. So if they're listening, hopefully they take some notes. If you're trying to catch money launderers and you have a ring of Jesus, my mind. Why does it always has to be on Fridays? You know, hey, here though it's early Friday, so I don't really have an excuse, but I'm going to give you one anyway. It's Friday. So you have the system where you basically have this outer ring of companies, that these gatekeepers that essentially allow people into the financial ecosystem. In crypto, those are regulated exchanges. Now, if you're trying to catch money launderers, where do you think you're going to catch them? Through DEXs, or when they actually move to cash out funds? And where they're going to do that, if you set up the regulation correctly and you weed out all the non-regulated exchanges, is a regulated exchange. You have to provide some documentation. Now, even if they provide fake documentation, you're going to get other information, IP addresses. You're going to get things like data inside of the photo that they upload with that fake identification. You're going to get chats through different chat interfaces where they may slip up and not use a VPN, or they may use a VPN that's easily tracked as a VPN. Maybe able to get the information from the VPN provider. There's a million things, data points that they get. So it doesn't make much sense for them to completely cut off DEXs from centralized exchanges. It does make sense that they do apply some pressure to DEXs to be able to facilitate information when and where needed to catch criminals. So again, not law yet. We'll have to see what happens. It's early next year, we're going to see some fireworks for sure. Right now, it doesn't mean anything for CoinMetro, and even if it goes into effect, we will make sure that we work within the lines of the law, and I don't expect any major ripples, to be honest. Are you confident coming into the new funding round? Yes, very confident. A potential gem to list would be Quan platform. There's 100 million market cap, layer 1, also registered in Estonia. Do you know about them? Do not know about them at all. Would love to hear more. Send me a DM, send me some links. I'll take a look. Happy New Year, Kevin. Have you packed your Credo bags yet? I do have a bit of Credo. Still have some orders sitting around, but do have some Credo on the books before the end of the year. Hey, Kevin, any news from Project XCM? Project XCM still in the works. We had a few things that popped up in the interim, sorry. So we haven't completed Project XCM. It'll be completed early next year, but definitely still going in the right direction. You're going to see a lot of XCM related content, pages, etc. Hey, Kevin, how do you feel about day trading with derivatives coming to CoinMetro? Surely there will be a decent amount of them. Well, I think people that know how to trade, that want to day trade, have at it. I think day trading for people that are just learning or think they know how to trade but haven't yet really gone through, and the real life kind of smackdown that happens when you think you know how to trade and you don't, I would say day trading is definitely not something you should be jumping into. The reason for having derivatives is more about providing a more holistic market, right? You're providing more liquidity to a market that needs it. You're also able to provide liquidity to assets, even like, the CoinMetro bond or CoinMetro equity, et cetera, which is going to be a low liquidity asset. So being able to provide additional liquidity will help that market grow, will help people actually trade in and out of that market. And that's really the underlying reason. But yes, people will trade derivatives and some people will lose money. Most people probably will, unfortunately. We want to do this in a way that we make sure we tell people and try to help them make money rather than assist them in getting wrecked. Can me and Bjorn be non-executive board members? Could you? Yes. Not sure if that would ever happen, but it's definitely possible. Any chance you might list Nano? Seems better than LTC and great green token with strong community, fair allocation when it was distributed, etc. Haven't really looked at Nano either. So again, DM me on Telegram at Kevin Marco. Send me some information. Let me take a look. When do you plan listing a new crypto on CoinMetro? January, we will have at least one, maybe two more listings. You say payments are not bad these days, but Amazon UK are blocking Visa credit cards in the next week or so due to costs. Is it just childish from Amazon or something bigger brewing? Well, look, when I say payments are not bad these days, I mean generally the rails. There's instant payments in just about every country around the world. You can move money fairly easy and fairly cheap in almost every country of the world. That doesn't mean that there aren't problems with the payment systems. And yes, centralized systems, well, have centralized problems. I think this is probably political in nature more than anything else, meaning Visa is probably charging Amazon a certain rate, or they're putting some pressure on them to change maybe some of their marketing tactics or whatever. And Amazon goes, well, you know what, Visa, bye-bye to this, hundreds of billion dollar market for you. We're not going to use you anymore. I tend to believe that if they do get to next week and shut them off, they will turn them back on rather quickly because Visa will come back and capitulate 100%. So I think I wouldn't call that childish. I'd actually call that pretty adult, in that it's a harsh negotiation tactic. It's a negotiation tactic taken every year by every major government around the world when their debt ceiling is about to be approached, right? And everybody talks blah 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 until maybe they let the debt ceiling pass, or they shut down the government for a few days or a week or whatever, and then eventually, obviously, somebody capitulates. So I think it's just a negotiation tactic, to be honest. But yeah, when I said that payments were generally good, I didn't necessarily mean the structure behind those payments. I just mean in terms of speed, in terms of cost. There's always things that can be improved, but crypto hasn't solved. They've solved the decentralized aspect, but cost and speed, not yet really, at least not at scale. in terms of, and especially, and then integration, obviously integrating into every single e-commerce platform, et cetera. We haven't seen that yet. Hey, Kevin, can you speak to the proposed Estonian legislation? Yep, already did a few times. So if you rewind a bit here, I said rewind, old school. You should be able to find it. What's illegitimate users? What do they do that's different from legitimate users influx? No, well, fraud. There's fraud. So basically, stolen identifications and or identifications that were given, copies of identifications that were given to somebody by a user that wasn't thinking too clearly, and then someone else using those documents to open accounts. So fraud, essentially fraud. Updates on Flux bonus from last snapshot. As I said, mid-January. Community is the most important factor determining the success and failure of the project. What do you plan? What plan does the team have to develop a strong community? I think we already have one of the strongest communities in crypto, to be honest. It might not be the biggest. And yes, we have days where, there's some non-sequential conversations happening or whatever. That happens when you get an influx of new users. But our community is strong. It supports us. It supports us in everything that we do. I think we treat the community quite well. I'm in there quite often. Many of Oliver's in there all the time. Many of our, high-level employees, and even and almost our entire support staff, et cetera, are in there almost all the time. We have a great list of community mods that are always in our Telegram as well. So I think we've built quite an amazing community. I think it's one of the things that I'm most proud of since the beginning of CoinMetro, to be quite honest. That doesn't mean it can't get better. That doesn't mean it can't grow, and it's obviously growing. But how do you grow a community? Well, you treat your people right. 4.8 Trustpilot rating shows that we treat our customers right. These AMAs show that we treat our customers right. We're here to answer questions. We're transparent, at least as much as we can be without hurting business. Note to self. So yeah, we try to do things, it's like that old thing your grandmother used to tell you, treat people like you want people to treat you. I think we follow that moniker pretty well in CoinMetro. Yep, there are times, when we get an angry customer. That happens. It happens in every business. But to be honest, I think the vast majority, 90% plus of our clients are happy, and they enjoy CoinMetro, and they really enjoy our community. When are we getting 10x leverage? Yep, lots of stuff has been happening, so that's been kind of put on a back burner. Definitely sometime 2022, we will increase leverage, probably in conjunction with the release of the new margin beta, which will be very early, I think, in the year, sometime Q1. So it's coming. Okay, we got this question 3 times from the same person, so that's been answered. Can a synthetic market be worth more than the underlying asset? Yeah. In fact, that's typical. Well, the synthetic market be worth more than the underlying. Well, that question is actually probably phrased in the wrong way, but I think I know what you mean. Can a synthetic market have more volumes? Can the volumes in a synthetic market outpace the volumes in the underlying asset? Absolutely. In fact, we already see that with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's futures market far outpaces its spot volume. Will CoinMetro ban me if I deposit withdrawal to stake? Will CoinMetro ban me if I deposit withdraw to stake or other crypto casinos? If you deposit withdraw to stake somewhere else, no, absolutely not. We're not gonna ban you. You're free to do with your crypto what you see fit. Crypto casinos, if your income is derived from casinos and you didn't select that you actually, because in the beginning, well, I don't know if that question is there anymore, but it was for some time when you were asked if you were moving funds in and out of casinos. If you said yes, you're fine. If you derive income from casinos, we will ask you to show that income because we're required to under the law. But no, we won't. It's not an automatic ban because you want to do something with your cryptocurrency. Thank you. No cryptocurrencies. They are assets. I don't want to buy my morning coffee with my Apple stock. Why would I do that with my BTC? Yep, exactly. I don't believe we have any cryptocurrencies, though I do think in the future we obviously will. Well, we have stable coins, which you can consider cryptocurrencies, I think. But outside of that, I wouldn't consider almost anything a cryptocurrency. So what moves the price of BTC? Hype, general market fundamentals. As the market becomes more mature, market fundamentals, i.e., Wars around the world, i.e. inflation, i.e. anything that may happen on a macro scale, now that Bitcoin is a much widely traded asset than it was before, move the price of BTC. In the retail market, it's still hype driven. So people think the price is going to go up. They're going to buy it. If they think the price is going to go down, they're going to sell it. As price goes up, they buy it. As price goes down, they sell it, etc. So there's a few factors on why price moves, but those factors aren't much different from the factors why any other asset in any other market moves. Yeah, okay, yeah, we won't. So there's confirmation. Any plans for some HTR staking in the future? Yeah, like I said, I think our plan is to have staking or something similar on every asset on the platform. And that's going to come from collaborating with companies like Vesper and IQ Protocol with Parsec, for example. So I would say yes. I just don't know exactly when yet. It's going to depend on a few factors. Same answer from the last question for Credo. Credo does have its own staking program. So once we do get their layer 2 integrated, which will probably be Q2, Q3 next year, then we can potentially have direct Credo staking because they have their own protocol-based staking on layer 2. If you want to put a limit order with worst price, then what is the book you will get matched with the best? If you put a limit order with worst price, then what is in the book you will get matched with the best price available? Well, if you place a limit order with a price that's outside of the current, spread, then it's just going to sit in the book at the price you asked for. Now, if you're talking about worst price, like you're buying and you're buying and the current price is, I don't know, 1, and you put a limit order in to buy at 130, then you're going to get it's basically a market order. You just won't get filled past 130. Simple as that. You'll get filled at whatever price is available below the price you asked for. Yes, it will match the top. Yeah, exactly. It'll just fill up to the point that you requested. So you won't get a worse price. You'll get whatever price is available. Happy New Year to the CM team. Thank you, Jens. Nice to see you around. Thanks for all the support over the years. Any plans to find more ways to increase XCM vaulting to diminish the supply? Yep, there are a few things we're discussing as well in terms of vaulting. I think the tokenomics are going to go a long way to diminish circulating supply, and this is going to be a secondary piece that we're also looking at. So absolutely. Afternoon from Nottingham, UK. Hey, Jack. Wow, you never give up. Thanks for the amazing growth. Very, very pumped for 2022. Open and transparent. Hey, Jack, thanks for all the kind words. Hope to see you in the new year when I'm back in Estonia. Any news on the Luna withdrawal fees, native token fees? They are so high, I think, on ETH, or clarification, please. Yeah, well, ETH gas fees are high. Withdrawal fees tied to, the custody fees we pay through BitGo and stuff for withdrawals, which to be honest, depending on how much you're withdrawing, are not that high. In fact, they can be much lower than competition if they're smaller size withdrawals. Native token will be coming. We've done pretty much all the work. We just haven't released it. I think it's going to be released probably end of January into February, something along those lines. And you will have a native ecosystem for Luna. You'll be able to choose how you want to withdraw, either via Ether, the Ether protocol, Ethereum protocol, or via the native protocol, obviously with much less fees on the native protocol. Looking forward to a great 2022. Thank you, Alina, very much. Will CoinMetro utilize, motherfucking grap god. Okay. I don't know what grap god is, but like grappling? Is that like grappling, like Greco-Roman wrestling? CoinMetro is one word, by the way. I'll excuse you on this one. But if it happens again. So thematic baskets are something we want to look into, but we will need to have a portfolio management license in order to use those. If another company with the license wants to use the thematic baskets on CoinMetro to help us create a product, they should reach out to us because we could do it quicker. Did you consider changing the tier structure for XCM, or it will stay? There will be some amendments and potentially a additional tier added so that other users can gain benefits outside of the current tier structure. I got to put this one up. I have COVID. I feel like crap, but an AMA, well, Kevin would cheer me up. Well, I hope it did. I don't know if it was one of the best AMAs or one of the better ones, but hopefully it's helped fighting your COVID. Do I have... I was going to say, usually I have this SAFU COVID thing on my t-shirts, but today I don't for some reason. It's a new one, doesn't have it. But hopefully you feel a bit better. You'll get through it, man. Don't worry. Do you consider changing the tier? Okay, we already answered that one. Getting down to the nitty gritty here. What are your thoughts 2022 about Parsec and IQT? CoinMetro list. We probably will list IQT. They haven't reached out to us yet. I heard from Daniel P that they will. So once they do, we'll have some talks about IQT. I think, PRQ, I own PRQ. I continue to own PRQ. I'm not worried about PRQ. Slow growth is fine with me. I think they will see a growth spurt in 2022, especially as they start to push IQ protocol on different platforms, and especially when platforms like CoinMetro start to adopt it to provide income earning opportunities across different assets. So 2022 is going to be a great year for Parsec. I don't want to give you a price point, but I do think they are going to increase in value. Now, will we see all-time highs hit? That's going to depend on rollout and awareness. But I do expect us to continue to drive higher and, eventually crash those all-time highs. Absolutely. When will Australia get Pay ID deposits? Still looking for, it's still in talks with a few providers in Australia. I think next year is the year. I don't know exactly the month yet. It's going to depend on these talks, but we are trying to get localized AUD deposits in Australia to reduce costs and travel time for those funds for our Australian clients. Have you thought about reaching out to crypto YouTubers? Yeah, obviously. We've reached out to a lot of them, actually. But that is part of the strategy. We'll see more influencers talking about CoinMetro next year, that's for sure. I'll leave it on this one. It's the last one in my list, $10 PRQ, right on. Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming. We got one question that just rolled in. I'm going to take this one, then we're going to leave it here. Do you plan on connecting CM to Terra Network? Yep, absolutely. We're already connected, actually. We just haven't released our first version, which will be withdrawals on the native Terra Network. That's going to happen very early Q1. And absolutely, we do plan on connecting further to the Terra Network and providing things like staking. So thank you, everybody, for coming. Happy New Year to everyone. Wishing everybody a prosperous 2022. Hopefully with friends and family and lots of good times and really embarrassing Instagram photos. So have a great, happy New Year. If you've already started drinking, hopefully this show was better than it actually was, looking at it through some beer goggles. If you haven't started drinking yet, be safe. Don't drink and drive. I don't want to hear about anybody crashing into a tree after these New Year's, or backing into one, Mike. So have a great New Year. Spend time with friends and family. You're going to be drunk tonight, probably with your friends and family. So while you're drunk, make sure you run around without your shirt on. Write XCM across your belly or somewhere, and just run around screaming XCM in a rather ridiculous voice for at least 1 hour straight. Make sure everybody doesn't understand what you're saying, but it leaves a mark so that tomorrow they search for XCM and also become part of this fabulous, strong community of drunks with XCM tattoos. Okay. Have a great weekend, everybody. Chat with you guys next week. I'll see you guys in Telegram. I wish everybody a happy New Year when the ball drops in New York, because to me, that's when the new year actually kicks off. So see you guys. Thanks again. Thanks for all the support in 2021. Really do appreciate it. Can't wait to see what we all do together in 2022.